What's your poison? Say it straight.
Welcome to What's Your Poison,
What's Your
the
Poison?
Friday afternoon show where people that disagree about everything agree the best way to do it is over a drink. My name's Peter Lewis. I run Essential Media, Australia's most progressive comms agency. This week, I am drinking a Wombat Brewery Pils from my local brewery down on the New South Wales South Coast, where I'm about to go and see the Milton Jazz and Blues Festival for the weekend. I'm having it with a bit of duck salami, which is, just to forerun our discussion on drug law reform, absolute crack. So that's me. I'm very happy down here. Damo, you are doing what we used to do before the pandemic. You are commuting and doing a conference call from an airport. What is going on?
I'm deeply apologetic. I've been forced into Brisbane for the weekend, so here I am, forced to drink Jameson, which is my poison for this week, out of a teacup that I found nearby. So cheers to everyone with the classic Irish whiskey that is a Jameson. And as always, it is a deep pleasure to spend my Friday afternoons talking politics and the world with you, Peter, and our amazing guest that you've brought along. Tell me about Kate.
So Kate Fairman is a New South Wales MLC who is referred by most people that I know as the good Green, in that most people rant and rave about how terrible Green MPs are, but Kate seems to be okay. I don't know if that means you're doing a good job or a bad job, Kate, but welcome. What's your poison this week?
Look, firstly, thanks, Pete. I'm not sure about that introduction. I think some people might like it. It's basically within the Greens themselves, though. They may take a little bit of, offense or whatever. But hey, didn't come from me. Now, if I had known this was like, who can be more hip, who can drink out of a, teacup and have their hipster beer from down south and their bloody duck salami, I would not have chosen my inner Redfern Chardonnay in my nice glass. But you know what? Like, I actually do really like Chardonnay. Like, I can't help it. It's actually a really nice wine. So I'm
Nothing wrong with
drinking
a Shardy.
It's Friday.
And
it's Friday. And it's a Margaret River, which that's where I like them
I just
from as
appreciate
well.
that you're clearly a Chardonnay socialist, and that's a fantastic thing for us to have on the show for a bit of a chat.
I embrace it.
Duck pancakes, champagne socialism, and
When
drug
drugs of
reform. I
choice,
can
drugs
already
of
see the story of the day.
I didn't know
so
that was
Damo,
on.
just a bit of background. So Kate's had 2 stints in the New South Wales Upper House for her sin. In between that, she had a tilt at the Senate for New South Wales the one time that I don't think the Greens got quota, which was that the election 2013 or 2016?
That was the 2013 where
Which
David
was just the
Lionhelm
tide
and his
going
Liberal
out.
Democrats. No, they had the donkey vote on the massive ballot paper, and they got like 8.5% or 9% of the primary vote because everybody thought they were voting for Abbott because
was
that's
that the tablecloth? The
Yes.
tablecloth is
One of them. Look, there's actually been plenty of tablecloth elections, frankly, but this was the one where, yes, Liberal Democrats
You were a victim
at
of the
front.
tablecloth.
Yeah, and that.
Also, you served a stint as Richard Di Natale's chief of staff down in Canberra, where you were there during Turnbull Morrison, so you might have
not as an au pair,
a bit.
just as a chief of staff, just to confirm.
Look, that was a terrible time, I'll tell you. Being his chief of staff during that time, but I was just like, really? You've what? No. Yes, look, what that has done is it's kind of knocked off any ambition for Canberra actually doing from Melbourne to Canberra for 3 years and really kind of getting to know it. And I just hated. In fact, I just dreaded every Sunday going there. I'm sure people don't, but I just thought, you know what, that's done it. I'm done. So here I am in lovely sunny Sydney instead.
And as an I think it'd be fair to call you an elder stateswoman for the Greens now. Like, what's your take on the state of the? What's your it feels to me like on the polling, the Greens flatlining while there's all this other, and it's not a terrible number. It's like between 10 and 15 most polls, but there's a lot of movement elsewhere, isn't there, at the moment?
There is a lot of movement elsewhere. Look, it's frustrating. I think it's frustrating for all of us that this is the situation. I think what we generally tend to see within the media, both, more progressive mainstream outlets as definitely the more conservative, is a kind of different treatment to the Greens that has happened over. Look, I've been involved in the party for 25 years. In fact, no, is it longer than that? Yes, it's longer. It's like 30 years or something. No. What? Oh my God.
People get less for
But
murder.
yeah, just 25, just 25.
Okay, phew.
So I always think about that with the 90s. When I think about the 90s, that's 35 years ago, and that
Was
freaks me
it
out.
before or after 9/11?
It was about a year before. So when I started getting involved, a year or two before, and but what we kind of analysed. I was obsessed with looking at the way in which, like, the ABC and the various media covered the Greens. Back then there was nothing. Fairies at the bottom of the garden stuff. And then it was loopy, loony Greens, and now we've gone through all that, but there's still, like, we've been talking about the gas tax, for example, for a long time. We've had that campaign for a long time, and there's something about maybe the authority that the media or even particular individuals have that people gravitate to. So whether it's David Pocock, whether it's One Nation, but the media, I think, are treating certain people within politics differently to the Greens, and they'll go, "Oh, we know the Greens are there." Like, the Greens always say that.
Mm.
So I do think there is a tendency to we're not the interesting folk, right? Like, we've been there, we're
Yeah.
solid, we've got our base, 11%, 12, as in that waxes and wanes, and Pete, the numbers in terms of what our base is, and every election we get different, that additional 5% or whatever swings a bit, but we've got
Notwithstanding tablecloths, you do win your upper house. You win the Senate seats. Yeah.
I always think of the Greens the same way I think of an IGA, which is, I get that it's there. It's nice that it's there. I get some people shop there, but it just doesn't have the range and the price is not worth it kind of thing. Like, it's just stuck in that little 10 to 15% quadrant where it's like, it's great that it's there, but give me a Coles or a Woolies.
Well, look,
or a Costco for me, which I think is what One Nation's becoming.
Look, I get that. And that's, I think, what, it's so interesting to hear Barnaby Joyce being asked these same questions now as a member of a minor party. "Oh, you're never going to form government." And then he's like, just their responses to this are very interesting. And you've got to put forward, like, your model government, the PM and the treasurer, and like, we're ready, as we run in every seat, every election. But it's clear that in a lot of places, we've tended to just put candidates in to be on the paper, and some of those candidates aren't running to be the next MP. That's really obvious right across the board. But look, we also see the rise in the Greens in, for example, the UK, Zach Polanski, what they're doing there in terms of their messaging. You know what they did? They threw a lot of money at it, a lot of money at very good advertising agencies. Apparently, this is going to be controversial. Got rid of consensus decision making and grassroots democracy. And what they do, if there's any Greens members listening to this, they'll die.
Let's talk about the week that was. I think the story of the week, Saturday on Anzac Day, with the booing on Anzac Day, and maybe, Dame, there's a through line to the riots in Alice Springs overnight as well. Like, you were there on Anzac Day and you texted me.
Yeah, do you, and out of curiosity, Peter, do you do an Anzac Day thing on Anzac Day normally? Are you an Anzac Day person?
No, but I noticed my daughter and all her friends, like, it's huge now. It's almost become a meme, because I was politicised when it was a protest rather than a and I felt that under Howard it became this sort of unctuous celebration, and I've kind of stood away. Like, I've got utmost respect for people that go to war, but I just think the day was corralled in a certain direction. Now it's been corralled in another way, where it's almost like an adjunct of the hospitality industry. But anyway,
Yeah. So look. So
your
obviously, in what turned out to be a bit of a coordinated effort, we saw a lot of people of a certain age and a certain persuasion booing the welcome to or the acknowledgement of country, welcome to country that was happening at Cenotaph and Anzac dawn services across the country. So there was a booing in Sydney where a young man was arrested. Similar thing happened at the memorial in Melbourne. Reports are that it happened in other places around the country as well. I think this is particularly an interesting it's an interesting conundrum, because I think if you could find one issue that you would unite the left and the right on, it is do not boo anything, let alone a welcome to country, at an Anzac Day dawn service. Just don't do it, right? There's no reason. It's a fucking memorial for fallen soldiers. It is not the time or place to boo. I don't care what your perspective is on welcome to countries. I don't care whether you disagree or agree. That is not the time to be issuing a boo. It is so deeply disrespectful to both the Indigenous people who've stood up there, who served in both of our world wars and many other wars that we've all, they've contributed to the military fabric of Australia since the beginning, with the exception of the frontier wars where they're on the other side. That's a whole other thing. And two, to all the servicemen and women who have served. It's just so disrespectful. I cannot believe that anyone in their right mind thinks it's a good idea to go to Martin Place and boo at a dawn service. Who in their right mind
and
does
yet
this?
a number of people on the right were using it as a way to double down on the welcome to country
issue, which again, and while personally I don't disagree that I think it's gone too far, and I'm not saying that because I don't believe in Indigenous issues. It's more of most of the welcome to countries or acknowledgement of countries I've sat through is white middle-aged women in meetings saying an acknowledgement of country that has no relevant, it has no outcome relevance, or
that's offensive to a white middle-class woman we've got in.
No, I
He also said middle age, but that's the same. It's the same thing. As in, it applies to me, is what I mean by same thing.
And middle-aged men, to be perfectly fair. It's more of my view on this is that I don't think anyone should have used this as to crowbar their views on acknowledgement of country. I think everyone should have held to the very simple line, which is Anzac Day is not the time to discuss these issues or to boo them in this setting. It is inappropriate, full stop. I think it was tactically wrong.
Do you reckon it was coordinated because it was happening around the country? Surely there was something going on.
It was a coordinated effort through one of those WhatsApp groups or whatever, but it was pretty disgusting. But I am going to add something, Peter, which you just mentioned, and Kate, keen on your views. You said your daughter went to it, right? I'm assuming your daughter
she went to the pub. They were all pre-loading up and heading up at about 10 o'clock when they got home.
Despite being a card-carrying right-winger, as you would call me, Mr. Lewis, I love my Anzac Day always looks the same. I do the dawn service, then I sit there and watch the march for 3 hours. I love watching the old timers, go down with their medals and their service. I applaud them, do all that. And then I like to do a pub crawl in Balmain, and I always end up at the Unity Hall, which I realise is the birthplace of all things Labor. But it is a great pub where all kinds of people get together to put some money up and celebrate Australia the one way it should be celebrated, which is with beer and unregulated gambling. That is the most Australian thing you could do, right? It's strangers changing money, holding money in one another's hands, hundreds and thousands of dollars in a pure trust exercise. And what I saw this time was
without sports bet,
without anything. It was all young people, which is great. But they were there for the drinking and gambling and not for the purpose of the day. So I put it to you that you should not be allowed to drink or gamble on Anzac Day unless you've been to a dawn service.
Ooh, Kate, what's your view in general on the evolution of Anzac Day, but also Dame's provocation?
Yeah, look, I haven't really done Anzac Day since probably boarding school, where we did, and maybe a little bit later in our small country town. I was grew up in Laidley in Queensland, and that was very much a thing. My dad did, and I went with him. But now I don't do anything. I absolutely will put out in terms. Oh no, I have been to wreath laying ceremonies in Martin Place as well, but I don't go to the service, and I'll admit that. That's not out of deliberate snubbing. I
Do you
just
go to the pub for
don't.
two-up, though?
I have been quite a bit to the pub for two-up. However, this
So
Anzac Day,
Dame's banning you
this
because you
Anzac
haven't got your
Day,
ticket.
I'd gone for a ride, came back, and as I was coming past the Foresters, Surrey Hills, 10:30 a.m. and it was just, I'm like, hang on, what time is it? I thought they didn't open till midday, and everybody was just going absolutely nuts. Then we went for a walk later in the afternoon, and you know what I thought? I don't want to go to a pub today. That's the first time I've thought I don't want to go to a pub today on an Anzac Day. And then we're walking, and the sound that was coming, was more full on this year, don't you think, than it has been in
Yeah,
my
it's
experience.
definitely it's the
Yeah, and you know what? Like with the
it was the
gambling,
most full on year I've ever seen.
one thing I agree with you about, Damien, is the a lot of people were there for the drinking and, you know, the whole two-up thing, right? The gambling, the money, all of that. And we know, like, that's a huge conversation. A big project of mine at a state level is gambling, poker machines, all of that. In terms of how would you do that? Would they all go in and you'd have little round stickers like I've donated blood, and then people would be able to go into the pubs, support that, because of
Sleep
course it's
cut.
that. But what's so funny is that's that whole, like, you know, you have to do this, which everyone's pushing back against now anyway, right? In terms of the government, any regulations. You were just talking about how it was amazing that it was so unregulated in
Yeah,
terms
for a
of
libertarian, there's a fair
people
bit of
handing.
compulsion there, Damo.
Exactly. But look,
This is my personal struggle. Is like I
Speaking of
don't want it to
regulation,
be
you're allowed to
regulated, but I
vape
want people to
inside
do it.
airports.
yeah.
Genuinely don't know. Don't tell anyone. Don't tell anyone.
Just saying,
I don't know
speaking.
if you're allowed. I don't know if you're allowed to vape inside an airport, but I'm
I've
doing it all the
been
same.
on planes that have been empty because someone vaped in the toilet. It was probably you. Let's
No, I
move
vape in my
on
seat.
to.
Actually,
Let's
wait,
move
are
on
you in
to-
one of those
I'm
awful
interested.
smoking rooms in the airports that are in those international hotels, and there's
No,
those
they don't
smoking
exist
rooms
in
that you
Australia.
walk
No,
past?
they don't.
But you're still
They don't
voting.
exist in Australia
Wow,
anymore.
you're a real bad boy, aren't you?
Yeah, he's a rock star. Let's talk about New South Wales for a moment. We're like, so you've been there in the middle of the room. It's almost at the end of the first term of the Minns government. I'm interested in your take on the government, but can I just say, as a Labor man, this is my least favourite Labor government anywhere, I think, ever. I think it might be more generational than ideological. Millennials as a subgroup irk me, and I find this group of millennials particularly irksome. They have
Can you not like Minns?
They have that baby boomer offspring entitlement. Every policy is just a shoulder struck and the bare minimum. And when am I going to get promoted? You know, and on every policy, I just feel like it's all dialed in. And that feels very millennial to me. You can defend your generation at a moment, Dame, but am I right or wrong, Kate?
I actually call them like the debating club. You know, the kind of the high school like debaters, and they get up there and, you know, it's all about the performance in the at the lectern or whatever it's called. A dispatch box actually in the upper house.
Dispatch box.
In the bear pit.
Well, bear pit, yeah, no, not the upper house. We're not quite like that. But look, I agree. I also, in terms of, I agree with you wholeheartedly, Pete, about the Minns government and Chris Minns. I will beg to differ in terms of millennial or the very, very last stage of Gen X. Although as a Gen X, I want to say he's millennial and he can be, you know, booted off
He's
to
not
them.
in my generation.
Yeah, yes, but aren't you almost at the boomer end?
I identify. I'm
Hang on.
66.
I know.
I'm 2 years. I'm an elder Gen Xer.
I know
Sorry.
you are.
Minns is born in 79. He's an Xer, not a
yeah.
millennial.
He's not.
Yeah.
Well, he's
He
not
is.
part of my.
He's
He's not part of
That's a
my
late X.
generation.
That's a late X, mate. He's MTV all the way.
yeah.
He's one of
and
you.
so what I've been
I
doing
bet
with
his
Chris
parents
Minns
are
is looking
boomers.
at. I just look at where the Daily Telegraph is going with their latest campaign. You don't have to do much prep for Parliament these days. You kind of look at what their bugbear is and what Ben Forden's been talking about or saying, this needs to happen. And literally, like the next week or the next week, the legislation has come to fix whatever it has been the issue. The parking fines thing, like, the paper, they've gotten rid of the paper parking tickets. Oh my God, that's outrageous. We're up in arms about it. Front page news. Really? And then 2 weeks later, bam, legislation in. Wow, fixed.
But
All
isn't that the system working? Genuine question. Isn't that the system
No.
working? That's a
Well,
feedback loop.
okay. Well, what
Murd-
about things like
Murdoch's a feedback loop.
Yeah, he is one of them.
there are so many reviews into really big issues that need to be kind of looked at, resolved, clearing of native vegetation, the pokey stuff. There's been this independent panel on gaming reform. They've had a review. The government hasn't responded for, 2 years or something. Drug summit.
Whatever.
So many things that they have
Isn't the
put
lack of
onto a review.
response the response?
Yeah, but
But that's the
getting
millennial
back to how
response.
bad this government is, the fact that we've got an opportunity to pass incredible laws, right? Like we would pass good laws. They've got control of the lower house with Alex Greenwich and others basically giving them their vote essentially in terms of the independents. So there's no battle there. And they can, if they pass good laws, if they bring us good laws, we'll pass them. But they're not. And it's the most infuriating thing, right? People.
So do you want to know the greatest damning of the Minns government? Dame. Tell me what you think of the Minns government.
I love the Minns government. I'm
My
a
goodness.
liberal guy, and I look
This
at Minns
is
and
my
I go,
point.
look, he might be wearing the wrong coloured jersey, but he's one of us, and that's all right.
Yeah, I think you're right. But if you put him through Ming AI, there'd be very little that Ming wouldn't go with.
Yeah, and look, he represents an ethnically diverse electorate. He gets the tapestry that is New South Wales. That it's not just it's not just governing for the eastern suburbs or the inner parts of Sydney, which I appreciate. I personally love the fact that he hasn't done anything on pokey reform. And Kate, I'm happy to expand on why I believe that we shouldn't reform pokies. I think that he's
You got to launder your money somewhere, right?
Well, yeah, but also we can't on the one hand, and this isn't a challenge, but I do want to get into it. It's we can't on the one hand say, hey, we should open up things like drug reform because people are adults and they should be able to do what they want. But then on the other hand, you can't spend your money how you want to, and we should tell you where and when you can. It's one or the other. But both have harms, both have societal harms. So either you go, our values are that people should have the freedom to choose because they're adults, or people cannot make good decisions for themselves and we must guide their decisions.
Let's park that until you finish your case, the Liberal case for a Minns government, because it's fascinating.
Yeah, no, that's fine. So the Minns government is basically a centrist government, right? As was the Perrottet government. As much as the Perrottet government was probably a centre-left Liberal government, the Minns government is a centre-right Labor government. It's been very friendly to businesses. It's walked the line quite, I think Minns had a better reaction to the Bondi massacre than any politician in Australia. Short of John Howard during Port Arthur massacre, I think Minns hit the notes from a cultural perspective of what people needed to hear at the time better than anyone else. I think he's exactly the kind of leader that most centre-right Australians would happily vote for, and I think he'll increase his vote count for the next year. That's my
Hey, go to
prediction.
Bondi because we were talking before.
Look, he will. I think too, increase his vote. And yes, his response after Bondi was what he thought would go down best in terms of the community grieving. But I say at this point, at what cost is all this happening? I speak a lot with different cultures. I actually, in particularly Western Sydney, different faith leaders. I've got the multiculturalism portfolio and reached out to Muslim community leaders after in January, actually. And Chris Minns didn't pick up the phone for them and didn't for months afterwards speak to them, any of them personally. I'm talking about the head of the Imams Council, the head of the Australian Federation of Islamic Councils, a heap of them. That's pretty rude and disrespectful, and you can be populist, which I think he is being, and that's one way to be a leader and be successful. But right now, in terms of the possibilities for this, our state after Bondi, we could have brought people together more, shown leadership in terms of quietening down the hatred and division. And his rhetoric, I think, did the opposite. And right now, unfortunately, that's a winning strategy. And that's what worries me about the Premier, frankly, and the interim report that's just come out from the National Royal Commission. What it has said about New South Wales Police's action. Like, I was brought back before the New South Wales Parliament 2 days, before Christmas, and I did have an international flight. I had to push back for a day. Didn't say anything about that. That's fine. That's the job. But that was all about, the quotes, slogans, giving the police more power. Nothing was said at the time about the role of the police itself, and everything was pushed in terms of blame to blame a whole cohort of people who were campaigning for human rights for Palestinians, right, against the actions of the Australian government. Again, I just think that was so irresponsible, and all about gaining more power and populist, support, as opposed to being the type of leader I think the state needed at that time.
Look, I don't disagree with you on the idea that there's a populism to be gained by the rhetoric. Personally, the way his words came across as an immigrant, I hate to say it, came across quite authentic. The part that I don't understand and genuinely would love for you to unpack it is, I would disagree with the assertion that a whole community was held to blame or to account. I mean, there's always exemptions. Some people will say that. But what I saw was an incident where everyone saw these two madmen who descended on the Jewish community in Bondi, but then also applauded this hero who intervened at great cost to his own life. And both of those sets of people were from the same religious group. I don't think anyone painted the Muslim community as the hero community or the evil community, but rather there were evil actors in it and there were heroic actors in it. What is without a doubt is that the target of that was one ethno-religious community. That's the bit that is unequivocal, is that was the target. So I think for me, I still struggle with people trying to equivocate well, you can't talk about the Jewish population without talking about the Islamic population. But gunmen targeted the Jewish population. No one's out there targeting the Islamic population. They're it's a whole bunch of other stuff's going on, but that's not what we're talking about here.
100%. And I made this point when I gave my speech to Parliament on the bill to clamp down on protests and establish that stupid, PARD, the Public Assembly Restriction Declaration. And I said that the the security briefings that Mike Burgess had given, and they've been covered over the last couple of days as well, I dug them up and saw that, they was talking about lone actors and religious events, and that was all there, right? That was all there. And what I'm talking about in terms of the Premier, back to him, was immediately, almost, the rhetoric started to turn to the protests as though he had evidence those guys happened to be radicalized from attending protests. And, anybody I know, like Labor MPs, many of them who walked across the bridge, many people love compassion. It was beautiful, right? So that's what I mean by there was no need to do that. There actually was no need to do that. yes, there's radicalized individuals within all groups, and there is within the Muslim community, and the Muslim leaders that I've spoken to recognize that, and what they're so uh, frustrated, heartbroken almost about, particularly in the last 4 months, 5 months, has been the loss or the complete drop of any working with them, which used to happen in terms of all the de-radicalization and bringing them in. And none of that's happening anymore. And they are just, they're just so devastated about it.
I genuinely deeply agree with you on that one, Kate. I think that these kinds of what's a popular word now is social cohesion. These kinds of
Oh,
social cohesion issues
they hate that
cannot
word.
be resolved without bringing everyone along
Because
on the journey.
even social, it's more about what we're doing now is embracing friction and finding ways of pulling the differences together, not papering over them, which the slogans get to. Hey, Kate, we always ask our guests to bring something to the drinks, and you've been working on drug law reform. So tell us what's happening there in New South Wales, because it's a topic close to both mine and Dame's heart.
I was going to say, yeah, look, I haven't brought any drugs other than alcohol, Pete, if that's what you're getting at. And I wasn't advised.
There wouldn't be much use over a Zoom anyway, to be clear.
Although this weekend I am travelling up to far northern rivers to go to their annual Mardi Gras festival, which is all about,
So who knows what will happen. Yeah.
well, no,
Literally got benzos on me. I've got opioids. I've got it all.
I speak on panels. Panels there. That's what I do when I come home. But yes, the irony, all the legal drugs that we can pop and smoke and drink.
Duck salami, legal drug.
I have been an advocate. I've been an advocate for quite some time, as a lot of people have, to try and get a sensible approach to our drug laws. Before the election, I think a lot of people also know this, Labor kind of put off any commitment to doing anything on reforming our drug laws until they had this drug summit. They were going to put it to the experts. Anyway, at the end of December 2024, there was the long-awaited drug summit. Not much has come out of it. There was like 4 days pill testing. There's just been a trial of pill testing. It's finished. I've heard from stakeholders that they think that's not going to continue. People are also begging for the law to change when it comes to roadside drug tests, so that people who are genuinely and legitimately using medicinal cannabis and they've got script for it and they're not high and they're not impacted, that they can just drive. And at the moment they can't, because THC remains in the system and they can get pulled over and they'll lose their license, and it's shocking. So the government's apparently been working on that for a hell of a long time, and still we haven't got anything on that. But the biggest one for me, is really around the criminal penalties associated with personal drug use, and just how much of our law enforcement efforts and resources are tied up with trying to catch someone with a bag of coke in their pocket going out for the night, who that's probably not going to harm that person. However, with a warning at the moment, there are dangerous stuff being found in bags of coke. People think it's coke and they're having a line or whatever, and it's got something worse than fentanyl, and they die.
If you can afford coke, you can afford a lawyer to get you off coke. It's also the choice of where the penalties are being.
Or it depends if you bought the bag or you're sharing someone else's. Kate, I think this might be one area that, as a centre-right guy, you might be shocked to hear that I actually deeply agree with you on this. And I would actually love to hear what's your, and I'm not saying this is the Greens' position or anything, but what's your vision for how Australia should treat recreational drugs?
Yeah, so I have been to Portugal, where it's decriminalised, to really have a look at the way they do it. I've met with senior police officials in that country, met with the head of what is called, I love this term, the Dissuasion Commission, so if you're in that country, if you're in Portugal and you you're caught with personal quantity of illicit drugs, they're still illegal, right? Which again, even that's a bit, that's an interesting thing to discuss as well. But you're just basically given an appointment with this dissuasion commission. Go in, there's 3 people, social worker, one from this dissuasion commission, someone else, and they assess very quickly whether are you somebody who, like 90% of people who take illegal drugs, they do so without harm to themselves or others generally. And if so, don't do it again. We don't want to see you again. Off you go. Done. If you're in that 10%, you get help, you get treatment, you can go into treatment for like 6 months. Within 3 days. Here, people are phoning to get into treatment to get off meth. They can't get in for 3 months, 6 months. You know, what happens in those 3 months, 6 months? Are they going to call back?
Yeah, it's
and you know what?
Kate, I know I've had close friends who've had, proper alcoholism and they
Yes.
can't get appointments for even basic alcoholism rehabilitation. Like,
We're
it is
pouring-
genuinely appalling.
There's so much money being poured into stopping people taking drugs. Like it's ridiculous in New South Wales. No other state does it. No other state sends all the cops through the pubs, sends
Yeah.
all the cops to all the music festivals. So
the dogs on stations, which
and-
my mate Robbie Buck's bugbear.
They say it's about supply. It's not about supply. It's about this ideological obsession that the police have, really. And the police have the power in this. I think this is what's happening. It's not, I think it's very difficult for any government to go easier now on the drug issue because of how much power and weight, police association included, they have on this particular issue. I think we need to remove criminal penalties entirely for every single drug. It's ridiculous. You can't criminalize, and that way people are able to seek treatment, right? People aren't asking about things now. They're not able to seek, if your friend's ODing at a kid's party on some illegal drug, the kids, freak out and go, oh my God, what are we going to do? But we've been taking drugs, that happens, and it can have obviously legal consequences.
Yeah. I don't know. And again, I might be going too far here. So let's call this a thought experiment. Should anyone listen to the podcast?
I
and think
love
that I'm
thought
completely fucking
experiments.
nuts. So I'm yet to be dissuaded by a commissioner or anyone else for that matter. I'm yet to be dissuaded from the idea that the best path for recreational drugs is to allow pharmaceutical companies to manufacture them and for you to have to go to a chemist and have a 2-minute conversation before you take them. Because from my experience, having sat with people who are ODing, friends who are ODing, every time the reason is the same. They think it's got no effect, or they don't understand the effect. They don't understand the temporal time frame between when they took it and when it's kicking in. So they end up taking too much of it because they're trying to get a kick and they don't realize that you've got to wait another 20 minutes.
Are you working for the Pharmacy Guild or not? No?
No, I wish.
Okay.
No, genuinely though, like I go, if we can, and if you look at the cost of manufacturing of even the most basic things like ecstasy or MDMA, this, that, and the other, it is nothing. It is a rounding error. You could put a clean little excise on it, which could more than fund the rehabilitation services required. And the plus side is, get this, we can treat people like an adult where they can go to a chemist, have a conversation and decide what they do with their life.
So
before Kate responds, Can I just throw one more bit in, which is almost a counter? I know a number of people that have the medicinal marijuana prescription, and they say to me they just get hammered by the industry trying to sell them more and more and more stuff. So I'm all for decriminalisation. I'm wondering about the way the market. Are we just integrity in
I don't know,
South
but
Park
again,
or? If you're
yeah.
creating a marketplace for it, that's probably not the solution either. Because once you've got a market, they want to sell more of their stuff.
I've got a prescription. It's been great at getting me off codeine for my C4 and C5 protrusions, which has been genuinely amazing because codeine really stuffs you up in the long term. I will use it very sparingly when I have severe pain. I get retargeted all the time. But on the same token, Temu's been trying to sell me rubber duck pajamas every single day for the past 2 years, and I've not caved. I'm an adult. I can determine not to spend my money on this thing. Like, it's pretty simple.
So
Kate, sorry.
No, that's right. That's very funny. I mean, also if you're on like any certain prescription drugs, right? Interestingly, you don't get targeted by others because of the way in which they're purchased through the pharmacy, right? But in terms of, I went to Colombia earlier this year for a harm reduction. I've been to Portugal and Colombia, both for these harm reduction international
Fact-finding mission.
conferences. Well, you know, I have put the
Border Force had fun with you.
I have put this out there in terms of why wouldn't we have a regulated cocaine market? Like the police are throwing billions at trying to stop cocaine use. It's rising, the price is rising, the supply is rising. They're also grabbing more, right, at the borders. So everything's increasing. When I went to Colombia, everyone's like, "Oh, you're from Sydney? Wow, gosh, our cocaine is selling for like, you know, $400 a bag on." Yes, right. This was the foreign minister saying, can Australia please work with us to try and get some kind of sense into this, in terms of the Colombian president has said that a regulated cocaine market would assist with paying their workers more. The workers, the people who are in the coca fields, all of the stuff, but everything, right? Because the illegal nature of it is its problem. Like, it's its biggest problem. I agree with you, Damien, about that. There's a whole range of regulating drugs, the currently illicit drugs, according to their level of harm. So cannabis would be regulated very differently to heroin. In Switzerland, they have prescribed heroin, and they have a place where users can go, buy the heroin, have the heroin. And you know what? It's really, really dropped in popularity as a drug, right? It's for very dependent people, but it's there. I agree with you. I think we're a long way off that, though, and that's why I'm legalizing cannabis. I think it's a no-brainer, but also it allows people to understand that, hey, you shouldn't have it if you're on these types of prescription drugs. If you've got these types of mental health issues, you can buy this type of strain, and you know what it is, and it's really low, and it's not going to send you into psychosis, hopefully, although we know that's a
That's the thing.
a risk.
Yeah.
Also, then decriminalize, remove criminal penalties for everything, and then look at a staged approach potentially. But you know what? We're a long way from that, because
we are.
Chris Minns doesn't have the guts to do it.
And how do the Libs play it in New South Wales? I'm interested, like Kate first, but then Dame, libertarian principles, like, but
I mean,
but how
look,
are
it's
the
not
Libs
just the
playing?
libertarian principles, right? Like, one of the core foundational tenets of the Mennsian philosophy is personal freedom paired with personal responsibility. That is, if I want to go and buy 20 MDMA tablets for a big party, I should be allowed to. But if I overdose on them, I have no one to blame but myself, and I shouldn't depend on the state to fix me up
None of
for
those
it.
voices, sorry, nobody in the Liberals, no one who is a politician, not a single one is saying
Kate,
that.
I don't disagree with you, but I'm reading from the canon of Menzies himself, so to speak, right? So, and this is the thing, when you have to lean to the populism of people are uncomfortable with this, but like they're uncomfortable with the idea of regulated drugs because the image they have formed in their head from 40 years of attempts at, the war on drugs is something very different. What I'll say to all those people is, if you really want your kids not to take drugs, nothing takes the sexy and glamour out of cocaine like a small Asian pharmacist spending 10 minutes explaining to you the contraindications, the fact that you might experience constipation, the dehydration effect. Like, that is the one thing that will make your kid reconsider whether or not they really need to take cocaine on a night out. That's what I would say to them.
I couldn't agree with you more. The frustrating thing with all of this is that whole thing about standing up and being strong enough in the face of, a negative media backlash from the usual sources. However, I will say this: in the last 10 years, the popular support, the opinion, the public support for this is just so different to where it was in,
Are you saying it's increasing?
Yes, it's every time. Like, I can do
that's
commercial
the millennials
radio.
for you. You're welcome.
No, it's not. It's actually the Gen Xers and Boomers. It's everybody. And you know why? Because almost everyone has, and everyone knows people who have, and they just like, this is just ridiculous.
We're pretending
Pretending
that
it's the
this thing
biggest
doesn't
lie.
exist.
Yeah.
So taking the major parties out of it, what are the positions of the other exotics that you work with in the New South Wales Parliament?
Libertarians, wow, yeah, let's go. I mean, let's
John
not have
Roddick's
any,
for it?
let's abolish the whole government, basically. So, yeah, he's fine. Well,
It's just one AI sitting in a box
you know
in the
what I
bear pit.
You know what I say about the libertarians? I say to him, look, I just want to put you all on an island together and just see how long you all last together. Because I tell you what, it'll be like 16 hours before they all get all their guns and, no one can defend them against it. One nation, they're not there anymore, even though they're polling all of that percentage that they're polling. There's
What
no
about your good
MPs.
mate, Mr. Latham? Where does he stand?
No, he's like
Yeah,
they've
where's he
got
kneeling at the
old
moment?
fashioned. But you know
Just
what?
grog.
I feel like exactly, and he's very supportive of the clubs and your good mates in the clubs and gambling industry. And he's all supportive of that. So no, he calls me because I've advocated, because I've suggested let's look at what a regulated cocaine market looks like, because hey, nothing else is working and it's not stopping anybody getting any. And now he calls me cocaine. No, was it?
Hey,
Cowboy
have you,
cocaine Kate or something. Which whatever, I'll take. It could be
can I
worse.
can I give you a Latham humble brag? He called me a Labor rat at one of the ALP conferences.
You
I saw
are a
him
Labor rat, Pete Lewis.
Well, I am
I
after
spotted
today.
you ages ago.
Anyway, I know that you're on a hard 4K. We normally finish this off. This has been fantastic discussion. We normally do a bit of we call it your shout, just a prediction of what's going to happen over the next week.
Oh my God.
And I think so you can go last because I didn't even give you a warning.
You
What's your
didn't tell me about
prediction
it.
for the week? I know.
So obviously we are 2 weeks from the federal budget. My
I think
prediction
say
is
Farah.
no. Honestly, I think Milthorpe's going to win Farah. I know everyone's going for old mate because they think One Nation's going to win, but I think Milthorpe will get across the line. I think next week we might see a few bigger announcements drop than we expect. But I think the biggest thing is we're going to see Labor and the government talking a lot about their signature housing reform. And what we are going to see in front of us is going to be a complete fucking lemon. Just another lemon policy that's going to inflate prices and leave more people unable to buy a first home. And this Ponzi scheme that is Australian properties is going to continue until society completely breaks down and we're in a Mad Max situation. What's yours?
I'm thinking Mad Max too. I wrote this week that we are on the set of On the Beach, which was the fantastic Neville Shute book and movie. There's been a crazy war in the Middle East. That we're in Melbourne, and we're waiting for the fallout to hit the last place on Earth before human life goes. It's not quite as bad as that, but as we've said before, we are in the shit. They're starting to twig. In the last 48 hours, we've had the inflation figures, and we've now had both Coles and Woolies saying, hey guys, price is going to start going up. Get ready for it. We are going into recession. And the idea, and it's totally poleaxed, the idea of this being a reformist budget. Like, people do not know. And we've mentioned this before, Dame, like the pandemic moved really, really fast, and you guys were managing it in the Prime Minister's
Very well.
office.
Yeah.
This is moving very, very slow, and I think in a way it's harder to manage the slow than the fast. But
this is the slow Band-Aid. You're right. This is the slow ripping of the Band-Aid, and Australians are not equipped for this.
Yeah.
Look,
Because we've now gotten used to the idea that government will step in and save us at any moment, right? Because that's what they did during COVID, is they stepped in and saved us, and they don't realise there's nothing government can do. Sorry, Kate.
No, that's
you say
right.
that like you've eaten a lemon or something.
I was going to say, well, in terms of the slow Band-Aid, I just feel like nothing much. I kind of feel like nothing much is going to happen because, like Australians, right? We're just going to sit back. The RSL, what are they doing? Reviewing the welcome to country. That's happening. And in terms of like, I thought it was like pretty dire, as a lot of people did 5-6 weeks ago. Now it's just all gone away. No one's talking about it. We're so relaxed. As a country. Everybody else, there's a reason why everyone gets angry and takes to the streets and really, that's not happening. And I don't think 2 weeks is going to do it. Maybe, but I agree with you, Dummy, in terms of the budget and the lemon. And I just don't think that he's going to have something that is going to really rip what needs to be ripped out in terms of the way that the housing market, is financed. And I just don't think he's going to do it. I don't think he's going to touch it. He's not going to touch super. He's not going to, well, who knows? But in the meantime, unfortunately, I don't think much is going to happen. And I think a lot does need to happen. And it's a very sad state of our politics.
But isn't Australia a great place to sit back with popcorn and watch the world burn? Like we've
And
got
you
the
know
best
what?
seats in the house.
And it is good because it's all relaxed and we've got beautiful autumnal weather here in Sydney, and let's enjoy it while we can because
Oh, what a
let's do it.
great use of autumnal. Kate, I think you're my one and
Yep,
only
yep.
favourite Greens
I
politician now.
told you. I told
virtue
you.
of the use of the word autumnal purely.
So we've gone the
Excellent.
Do
full
love that
circle.
word.
We've
I love the
landed the
season.
plane. I can't.
We are on a
can't
Green Libs unity ticket here.
watch
Hey.
out, or they'll start calling you Teals.
Kate, can I just say thank you so much for joining us. You are welcome back anytime. What a wonderful and lively discussion. Hey, do you want to take us out for the week and then I'll
Yeah,
stop the
I feel-
record?
Thank you.
Well, why not? I hope your plane's not delayed. Damo, thanks for you. Kate, always great to have a drink with you. Next time we'll do it in real life. And thanks anyone who might be listening.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No
It's been
animals
fun.
or children were damaged in the making of this show. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.